Hello everyone. So today we're going to look at a quick comparison between the 2020 MacBook Air and the 2020 iPad Pro. This is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And you might be looking at these two devices if you're perhaps a student or somebody that's working. And these are the newest devices, portable computing devices from Apple. And though they're quite similar, they're a little bit different in some ways as well. So today we're kind of going to look at which one would be for you depending on the type of work that you do. So this MacBook Air is the i5 model and everything else is base on it. So the only upgrade on it is the i5. And then, like I said, this is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. There's also an 11-inch iPad Pro. So the first thing I want to talk about is these two devices are very similar. The biggest difference that you're going to realize is, aside from the form factor, that the iPad has a 120 hertz refresh rate screen. That just means that the pixels on the screen refresh a lot faster, so double the speed of the 60 hertz refresh on the MacBook Air. And that's important if you're viewing a lot of content, if you're scrolling through pages or Instagram or social media and things like that. So it's definitely something that's noticeable. And it's probably the most noticeable difference between these two in everyday use. So other than the screen refresh rate, the sizes are very similar. Battery life is very similar. So everything about these two is pretty similar. And the biggest difference that you'll notice is the form factor. So obviously this is a tablet and this is a laptop with a keyboard attached to it. But what you can do with the iPad is, of course, you can get the Magic Keyboard stand, but in my opinion, that's a little bit too expensive for a keyboard case. What I have on it is just a generic magnet case that I got on Amazon, and I'll leave a link in the description below to it, but it's a nice case that it just attaches via magnets, so you can just pull it off anytime, and then you can just place it on it, and then it attaches, and then you can prop up the back behind it like that. So if you do that, and you attach one of these wireless keyboards to it, so this is just a Bluetooth keyboard by Logitech, and if you attach a Bluetooth mouse to it, so this is just the MX Master by Logitech, then essentially you're using it as a laptop. But there are differences in the two because the ecosystems that they run on are very different. So the iPad OS system and the Mac OS system are quite different. And in Mac OS, one of the things that you're probably used to is just the ease of multitasking. So you can open pages, you can, swipe up and down to look at all the open windows that you have. So there are a lot of workflow benefits to having a laptop, but having a laptop sometimes is not always the best thing. For example, sometimes I find myself not wanting to do work because we're all used to doing work on a laptop. So when we look at the laptop, we kind of feel like it's time to work. So a lot of times I find myself grabbing for the iPad simply because it's more fun and more refreshing to use. So if that's important to you, if you're the type that kind of procrastinates and you're kind of finding different ways to make yourself more productive, then you might want to consider the iPad. In Mac OS, I feel you'll be more productive. So I have this app on here called Magnet. So what that does is it essentially lets you clip all of the windows to certain parts of the screen, just like in a PC or in a Windows computer. And the reason why that doesn't come natively to Mac OS is because, well, Windows and Microsoft patented it. So Apple users have to download a third-party software. But once you download it, it works just as good. And with that, and with all the different apps that run, full, and not just a mobile app, but just a full native app on the Mac OS system, it is a more powerful unit. But now with iPad OS, there's actually a lot of things that you can do just as if it was on Mac OS. So I tried to do all of my workflows on the iPad for a couple of weeks. And I owned both of these units for probably a couple of months now since they came out. And one thing that I've noticed on the iPad is you can multitask, but it's not easy to multitask. So you really have to learn the ecosystem. And I've always been a tech kind of guy, but it even took me a good couple of, probably a week, just to learn the ecosystem on how to multitask efficiently on the iPad. So for example, there's a lot of videos out there that will show you all the features, and I won't dive into every one, but this is what I use. So in order to multitask efficiently, you need to have most of your apps down here in the dock. If you don't have them here, you can't really pull up another window because you would have to go back into the home screen. So I keep most of the apps that I use down here, and if you wanted to add more windows, what you would do is, you can drag and drop windows. So you can add another one here, you can scroll through, you can look at it. And then another cool thing is you can add yet another window on this kind of, whatever this mode is called. So essentially you can have 3 windows open. But as you can see, it's kind of finicky. Like it's hard to really tell the system, do I want the window here? Or do I want the window here? Or do I want it in this, I think it's called flyover or something view. Now, this is pretty cool. You can have multiple apps that, this is kind of like its own little system here, and multiple apps live in this little dock. And you can throw it away by just swiping it off the screen. But if you swipe too fast, it ends up turning into this screen. So that's something that you have to train yourself to do. You have to kind of swipe it away slowly. And if you swipe it away too fast, it comes back onto the screen. So can you multitask? Yes. But is it very efficient? No, it's not. But something about using the different system, the iPad OS system, and using like the file browser and how the apps look on the iPad OS system, it's new and it's refreshing. And sometimes that just makes you want to do more work. Now, if you attach the mouse to the iPad, it doesn't function that well. It's not like you can attach a mouse to it and all of a sudden it becomes a laptop. That's not how it works. You attach a mouse to it and it just takes over what your finger would do. And a lot of the gestures are pretty much meant for finger use, so multi-touch. But if you're adding a mouse to it, it's not that great. And same with the keyboard. So if you add a Bluetooth keyboard to it, it works. But I would say it mostly works with typing. So if you need to type, a really long email or type fast or something, then a Bluetooth keyboard is great. But if you're looking for multitasking, like Alt-Tab or, going up into the Launchpad, those things are still a little bit finicky on the keyboard. On a keyboard like this, which was meant for Windows, you have to hit the Windows key for most of the things. So Windows Tab and then Windows C and Windows V for copy paste. So it doesn't feel that natural, at least to me. But one of the important things I want to talk about is just the feel. So how do these devices make you feel? And I know that sounds a little bit cliche, but it's very important, especially in 2020 when everybody's in lockdown and we're trying to be more productive at home. It's important to keep yourself productive and using the proper tools to keep yourself motivated. So if you're going straight for just productivity, I need something that will handle all of my tasks as good as it can get. Well, you should get the MacBook Air or the MacBook Pro. So I got the Air mainly because of its form factor. It's really thin and everything about it just, it has a great build quality like all MacBooks. And if you want to look at, all the different tech specs and things like that, there's a ton of other videos that'll do just that. But this is, I want to focus more on what these devices will mean to you and what they might do for you. Another thing I want to mention is both of these devices have USB-C ports. So the MacBook Air has 2 USB-C ports on the side, and it's nice that they actually gave you 2 and not just 1. And the iPad Pro gives you 1 USB-C port on the side over here on the bottom. Now, what that means is you'll need dongles. So I first thought that I wouldn't need any dongles. So I went about a week without dongles. But then I realized I do need dongles. And the first dongle that I bought was this one, so the Moken one. I'll leave a link in the description below, but I don't recommend it. It's the cheapest one, and it has some slots for SD cards and USB 3, and one HDMI out. But then I realized that the HDMI port doesn't transmit enough data to cast 4K onto the TV. So then I got another dongle, and this one's called Dodo Cool or something. Also on Amazon, a little bit more expensive, I think $10 more. And this one has USB 3, and then it has the HDMI port, and then it also has the SD card slots, and then one power delivery port. But this one, it does transmit data through HDMI properly, and it allows me to cast 4K onto the TV. But I noticed that the Ethernet port was missing. And I've been pretty obsessed with home networking, since we've all been working at home. And I started setting up my Unify network at home. And in order to do that, I needed to connect to the Ethernet cable, hardwire into my network so I can control my modem and all my access points. So then I got yet another dongle. And this one doesn't even have a brand name to it, but it has 3 USB ports, and it has a HDMI out, and it has that Ethernet port that I was looking for, and it has the power delivery, and it has the SD card slots. So long story short, if you're going for a dongle, get the one that has everything on it. And this is the one I recommend. So I'll leave a link in the description below to this one. It's pretty much the only one that you need, and it'll work with either one of these devices. So if you're getting one of these devices, you do need a dongle, just trust me on that. And another thing that I found interesting on these devices is they can all be charged using a USB-C power bank. And that's something that's a first for me. So I came from the Surface Laptop 2, which is also a great computer, but that has a proprietary Microsoft charging outlet. And because this MacBook Air and this iPad Pro have USB-C charging, what I use is this RAV power bank. And this one I think is 20,000 milliamp hours, and it has 2 ports. It has a power delivery port and a normal USB 3 port. So this is able to fully charge my MacBook, I would say probably twice on one charge on this thing. And I just leave this really short USB-C cable on it, and I take it with me wherever I go. So if I need a little bit of juice, I can charge up either my MacBook or the iPad using this. So I definitely recommend one of these. I'll leave a link in the description below as well. So back to these 2 devices. Now, another thing that you really have to consider is where do you work and how do you work? So a lot of times I don't work at my desk, and that's simply because I'm lazy. And it's hard to motivate yourself if you're not going to the office every day to sit down at a desk and do some work. So you have to find creative ways to trick yourself to want to work. And that's what the iPad does for me. So every time I pick up the iPad, and it's just one giant, gorgeous screen, right? So you pick it up, and whether you're browsing YouTube on it or going on social media or playing some games, at least this is your go-to device. And it's more enjoyable watching content holding a screen than holding a laptop, putting it in your lap or whatever it might be. Now you can literally take this iPad, you can put it in the shower when you're showering, you can have it on your lap when you're on the toilet, whatever you do, you can use this iPad for just anywhere that you are. You can bring this with you, and it's very convenient. So I think that's a really big factor for me. The fact that I can bring this with me and have it on me and do work whenever I need to. So I might be, for example, enjoying some YouTube content or whatever, or watching Netflix, and all of a sudden an email might come in. So instead of switching devices, walking and going to my laptop and then doing something, I can reply to the email immediately on my iPad. And if I really need to type something long, I can, plug in an external keyboard, just turn it on, and it automatically connects via Bluetooth. And I can type the email and I can turn the keyboard off again. So something about this form factor and this beautiful screen and the 120 Hz refresh rate makes me want to use it a lot more than using this laptop. The only time I would find myself reaching for my laptop is if one, I don't want to go sit down at my desk and do some work on my PC, because that is actually, work time, devoting a good couple of hours to work. And I'm not so mobile on the go that, I have the iPad in hand. And I know I need to do perhaps 20 minutes, 30 minutes of work. I kind of want to do it while sitting at my kitchen table or on the couch. Then I might grab this MacBook Air. But that's a conscious decision that I have to make to grab it. And that doesn't happen often. So between these two devices, if you can't tell already, I use the iPad a lot more. Now, I would probably, if I could do it over, I would probably get the 11-inch model. I wanted to try the 12.9 because I wanted to try what a huge tablet felt like. And I've tried it, and I felt it, and I think it's really big. The issue is, if you're just watching content on it, it's great. And if you're in bed and you hold it, landscape or portrait, it's great. But right when you try to type on screen with the on-screen keyboard, it gets really awkward, whether in landscape mode or portrait mode. Once you get the on-screen keyboard on there, I think it becomes awkward. So that would be my only issue. It's a little bit too big. But in terms of battery life, performance, it's amazing. I think this has one of the highest Antutu scores for a mobile device. Battery life, honestly amazing. You can get through a good probably 2-3 days of moderate use, and it doesn't overheat. The form factor is great. The cameras, a lot of people are talking about how fancy the cameras are. Obviously, who uses the cameras on an iPad, right? I've used it maybe once or twice. It's nice to have. For example, some of my mobile banking apps allow me to deposit checks using the camera. So I would open that, I would go to deposit check, and then I would just snap it from the iPad camera. That's probably something I can't do on my MacBook because the app doesn't natively support it on the MacBook. I would just be using the browser. So there are benefits of having a camera, and if you're video chatting, or if you're on Discord, or if you're on Google Hangouts or something, having a nicer camera does help. So another thing I wanted to show you guys is, if you, like me, decide to get both of them, one of the coolest features, I feel, is this wireless screen sharing. So if you just go up here to this AirPlay icon on the MacBook Air, and you select the iPad, you can mirror the image, or you can extend the image onto the iPad. And I usually extend it. And I think it's a great feature because it's wireless. And I remember back in the day where you would have to connect a cable or an HDMI or something from this to that, but there's no lag, it connects wirelessly, and it extends the image over to another screen. So a lot of times I find myself, having, let's say Chrome open on this one, and maybe a worksheet and the calculator and whatever open on this one. So I would say that's the most efficient workflow for me is I'm working on the iPad Pro, I'm walking around the house, I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and then, I need to do some quick work. I come next to the MacBook Air, and of course with the AirDrop, everything syncs automatically. Like I can copy on here, paste on here, and then I can copy on an iPhone and then paste on this. So everything syncs, and I can come onto the MacBook Air, connect the screens, and then do whatever work I need to do. So I would say if you're able to get both of them, then that is definitely a huge feature. And just lastly, I want to talk about just the app ecosystem. So you have to understand that the apps that you find on iPad OS are different, right? Like they're not the full native apps. And if you're trying to do some word processing on the Microsoft Word on here, or whatever it might be, it's not the greatest feel. Microsoft Word still feels better on Mac OS and not iPad OS. And same goes with Excel, and you can do some light processing on here, but nothing too heavy. So all in all, I would say this: if you are the type that struggles a little bit with productivity, and you're looking for ways to become more productive through your tech, I would say get the iPad. If you haven't tried doing work on an iPad Pro, whether the previous generations or the newer generations, and you're kind of into new tech, try the iPad. Try the iPad and see how it changes your workflow, because it's not always the best tech that provides you the best workflow. Sometimes it's the tech that's most convenient. And in this case, the iPad, if you always have it on you, or if it's always close to you, is the most convenient one. And because you have the App Store on iPadOS and just on iOS, you have access to all the apps. So my battery actually died. Sorry about that. I guess I was talking too much. But anyways, the last thing I want to say about these two devices is the app ecosystem. So because this is on iPadOS and it's based off of the App Store, a lot of the apps that you have access to on here on the iPad, you don't have access to on the MacBook. The MacBook is your traditional laptop, right? You have your traditional app ecosystem and you have your Mac OS App Store. But this is a mobile device. And if you're looking to become more productive at home from a mobile standpoint, or if you're taking your devices to work or school, perhaps you're taking notes, or you're always on the move for work, for different meetings, then honestly, I really like the iPad for that. Now, if you get the same case that I got, it's so convenient to take this around with you, because usually during the day, if I'm running about, I keep the case on. And whenever you get somewhere, you can prop it off. And because it has the magnet, it turns on when you remove the flap. But if you're at home, and let's say you're just winding down for bed, then you just undo it. And because it's magnetized, you get this nice, sleek, iPad that you can just take out of the case and watch some videos on in bed or whatever. So something about that really attracts me to it. And it allows me to do a lot more work than I would have done otherwise without it. So having that type of portability really helps. And like I said, if you haven't tried doing your workflow on an iPad, an iPad Pro, one of the newer ones, I'd highly recommend it. And if you're watching this video, it's probably something that you've been considering if you wanted to switch that ecosystem. And you probably already have a PC or a laptop or a desktop or something like that. If that's the case, get the iPad. If you have none of this and you don't have any computer in your household, you should probably get the MacBook Air. You still can't call this iPad a laptop. It's not a laptop replacement. It's a completely different device. Sometimes, let's just say you need to diagnose your network, or you need to do some hard computing, or set up a printer, or just something that's more reliant on either a PC or a Mac. You still need the Mac ecosystem to do that. You can't do all of that on the iPad. This is more like a larger phone, but something about a larger phone that you always have on you makes you want to do more work. So all in all, that's my take on both of these devices. If you're able to go into the store and try them out, you can try them out, but that's my opinion on it. Get the iPad Pro if you already have a laptop. And if you have any questions about either one of these devices, please let me know in the comment section down below. I've used these, like I said, since launch, and so I pre-ordered them both from Apple. And since then, it's been a couple months now, quarantine months. I've used the iPad Pro the most. I use this every single day for viewing content on YouTube, for scrolling through the internet. Like you can see, my dumbbell workouts. If I'm doing a workout, I prop this up on the back and I start my workout. So there's so many things that I use the iPad Pro for, and not so many things that I use my MacBook Air for. And I would only use the MacBook Air if I'm really trying to get some work done. But that's not that often in quarantine. So that's my take on these two. Like I said, if you have questions, let me know in the comment section down below. I'd be happy to run any tests for you guys. This has not been a comparison of hardware or specs. There's a lot of other videos on that, but I just wanted to share my experiences on using these two devices and how they've impacted my workflow. So thank you so much for watching. If you like my content, please consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.